Yeah.
Hola gente del grupo Grite, estamos acá nuevamente en otro encuentro y nuevamente con un invitado excepcional. Pensemos que para la primera mitad de los años 90 el cine de terror dentro de Estados Unidos estaba bastante de capa caída hasta la llegada de Scream. El terror dentro de lo que es Estados Unidos va a ser reemplazado básicamente por thrillers clase A y lo que es el terror duro va a pasar al VHS y son algunos pocos directores los que van a mantener vivo el terror dentro de la cultura estadounidense. Uno de ellos es Ted Nicolaou y lo tenemos acá presente. Welcome, I'm very happy to have you here.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah. Yes, I mean, Fernando said as a way of introduction, the evolution of the horror genre in the cinema, and when they move one side move to the big budgeted movies, and the other goes to the VHS side, and of course the nerdy ones as us enjoy the VHs because they are much, we find a lot of things much in common with us. So um, I will open the fire. So let's kick off by saying or by asking that in your films often blend the grotesque with the comedy.
Yes.
Do you believe that horror is, in a sense, a mirror to societal anxieties, or is it more of an exploration of your or our latent desires? Um, could you elaborate on the interplay between these contrasting elements in your cinematic world? Yeah, that's a complicated question, isn't it? I think that that horror is just a part of our psyche, and uh, that the icons of horror and the nightmarish qualities of horror suit our desire for excitement and terror. And as the world becomes more civilized, we hope, and uh, elements of fear are not so present in our daily life, and predators are not hunting for us like they used to be, that I think we need and project the desire to experience fright and to empathize with characters who are surviving something that is unthinkable. So for me, I grew up loving horror films, and science fiction films, especially of the 1950s, were kind of my Saturday afternoons and Saturday night, late night TV. So in a way, the horror genre is just a place where you can place all of your nightmares and all of and some elements of comedy to kind of balance out the horror. Yes, indeed, indeed. Great, great, great answer. So, um, we translate we go for Fernando, your first question.
Gracias, Pablo. Um, Ted, um, sos un director conocido por bajos presupuestos, como prácticamente todos los directores que han trabajado para Full Moon. Tus primeras películas, sobre todo las de subespecies, no se ven baratas, no se ven cheap, lucen realmente muy caras. ¿Cuál era el presupuesto de las primeras películas de subespecies? ¿Y cómo fue trabajar y dirigir a Angus Scream en la primera subespecies?
Fernando said that working for Full Moon, low budget
movies in general terms.
But your, voy a continuar yo. But your films, your
Yes.
suspicious films, look really expensive, even if we know you have a short budget. Pablo, ¿puedes seguir?
Yes. Oh, uh, what were the budget? You can spend an amount of money, or you just has a restriction?
And your budget for subspecies.
Uh, Subspecies was a really unique opportunity and an exception to the full moon, low budget world. The very first subspecies was a co-production between the Romanian government and Charles Band. And that was the reason why Charles decided to try to shoot something in Romania. Shortly after the revolution, their film studio was standing empty. The the film industry was gone, and so basically we had a budget of probably $125,000 in Romania. And then Charlie Band had to pay for the American costs, the makeup effects artists, the cast and the post production. So maybe in all the budget was $200,000, but 125,000 in Romania at that time. The fortunate thing is when he sent me there to scout locations and decide if it was even possible to shoot a movie there, the the locations you could access, the castles, the fortresses, the Orthodox churches, the city streets, everything was so spectacular and so open to, if you paid a little bit of bribe money, you could shoot pretty much anywhere. So for me, it was the opportunity of a lifetime to be able to go shoot someplace that opened my eyes and opened my imagination so broadly to another way of life. And it was hell shooting that movie. It was very difficult, and there were always problems with the money and always problems with not enough film stock reaching the country for us to shoot. So it wasn't fun to shoot that film. But with my collaborator, Vlad Paunescu, who was the cinematographer, who later became producer and cinematographer of the other subspecies movies, and his girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife, Juana Paunescu, who was just a phenomenal costume designer. And then with my cast, especially with Anas Hove as Radu, we were able to pull off something that looked so much more expensive than it actually was. And mostly due to the fact that we had the time to shoot because the Romanian crew only worked a certain amount of time and they went on strike quite a bit because they weren't being paid on time. So it was kind of a nightmare, the overall production. And when it was over, I was so happy to go home. But in retrospect, you forget all of the bad memories and you remember the good moments of drinking wine with everybody and meeting actors of the Romanian theater. And it was a spectacular opportunity for me.
Oh,
The
yes.
special effects look incredibly fine. The films look really expensive and great. ¿Cómo llegaste a ese castillo? ¿Cómo conseguiste ese castillo?
How do you find the places, the sets and the whole? I remember making my research about your filmography. I read that you once described Romania as a land of ghosts and unfinished symphonies.
Did I say that? Oh, amazing.
I don't know. I read it. Isn't
You can retract.
in the
Yeah.
interview was you, so I don't know.
Okay, I must have said it then. Yeah. For me, the process of filmmaking has various steps from the screenplay to the pre-production to the production to post-production. And one of my favorite moments in the overall process is scouting locations. And that because there's no pressure on you to make a schedule, to do anything other than to go see places that you've never seen before and decide if they'll work in certain places in the movie. So when I first went to Romania to scout locations, Vlad and Juana and Vlad didn't speak any English at the time, and Juana spoke a little bit of English. So she was the go-between in our interactions. And a driver just took off from Bucharest up into the mountains and just looked at places. And every place kind of sparks your imagination to how it could work within the movie or how you could adjust the script to adapt to the locations. And in truth, the castle interiors, especially in Subspecies, the first film, were existing sets on a soundstage at Bufta Studios. And they were kind of decrepit at the time that we moved in and started shooting there, but they were extensive and very realistic. So that was kind of the grounding point for the movie. And then the fortified monastery at Prejmer, the fortress at in Brasov were at Rizhnov were and the villages. The villages just spark your imagination. At the time, traveling outside of Bucharest, there was you went back in time to peasants carrying bundles of hay on their backs and sausage sellers on the side of the road, and it was uh, for me as an American who comes from a place where there's too much of everything that you can buy. There you couldn't buy anything. You could buy candy bars in the dollar shops in the hotels. You could buy very little in the grocery stores, but you could buy wine very cheap. And so wine became kind of our evening pleasure, and in the midst of all of the kind of misery and poverty that we were working within, you drink wine with your friends and you laugh and suddenly the day seems nicer. So your question was about locations, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we found the location. Basically, we traveled all over the country, and every place sparked my imagination. And with a foreigner's eye, like I had going there, things seemed beautiful to me that maybe the Romanians had kind of abandoned or forgotten how beautiful their country really was. And so it was a matter of slowly they were waking up to being a free country, and I was like waking up to what it's like to live in a place that is so poor and desperate uh and yet the actors and the theater was so vibrant there that Vlad and Juana kind of introduced me to the theater there, and it blew my mind, to see such creativity and humor and drunken revelry in the midst of such desperate situations. I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
No, yes, indeed.
Okay.
In a very wide form.
Um,
Any?
no, quiero terminar una partecita de mi pregunta,
Ah,
que es, ¿cómo fue trabajar con Angus Scrim?
how was like directing Agnus Scream in the first one?
Oh, it's directing what?
Angus
Scream.
Scream.
Angus Scrim. Okay. Uh, when we were shooting Subspecies, the we had shot a lot, many weeks of very difficult shooting up in the mountains in the freezing cold. The actors were getting really tired of being there, uh, and uh, Michael Watson, who plays Stefan, Radu's brother, was big trouble to work with, and Anas Hove, who plays Radu, was drinking a lot at the time, and so there was like madness of drunkenness around the set. And then Angus Scrimm came to Romania to shoot his couple of days of work. And the actors were kind of disgruntled and not so happy. And Angus showed up kind of, his plane was diverted to a city in the north and he had to drive down to Bucharest. So he was worn out. And what I remembered from Angus Scrimm from what were the movies? The cemetery movies where he played what were those films? You know the movies
Phantoms.
that he was known for? What was it?
Phantoms. Phantoms.
Yeah. Okay. So let's back up. Um, um, Remembering Angus Scrimm from the Phantasm films, uh, I got the sense that he was a very sinister character. But when he showed up on the set, he was a very gentle man. And I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do here? How are we going to make this character into the vampire king? And and we only had a couple of days with him. And he was late to arrive in the first place. So costuming and makeup were kind of the main priorities. And uh, no matter what you did, he had to have some kind of wild hair. And so we kept adding wig upon wig to try to give him something of antiquity. And it ended up being a little bit silly looking, unfortunately. Um, but he was very, very willing to try anything and very precise because handling the bloodstone and making it drip blood was a very difficult process. Uh, but Michael Watson didn't get along with him very well and thought that he was, silly. And so it created some problems because for me, I have to have peace on the set, and I like everyone to work calmly and to create an atmosphere where every actor feels safe and secure to try things and make mistakes. So so I tried to kind of nurse Angus Scrimm along, and honest to his benefit is a much more generous actor. And so he was great working with Angus. And for me, it was like, kind of the first time in the subspecies world, at least, that we had kind of a name actor to help the series along. So it was a pleasure, but it was very short-lived, and he was in and out of the country in a couple of days.
Ok. Emiliano.
Sí. ¿Se me escucha bien?
Sí, perfecto.
Bien. Pablo, si te parece, me gustaría empezar con una pregunta que había pensado para el final, pero que bueno, que conecta con algo que había comentado Ted hace un ratito. Viajó mucho a Europa para buscar locations, como comentaba hace un momento, países como Rumania, Serbia o Bulgaria. Ya estuvo comentando un poco cuáles fueron los pros, digámoslo de esta manera, que había encontrado en estas experiencias. Mi pregunta sería, ¿cuáles serían o cuáles les parece que fueron los contras de filmar en otros países, teniendo en cuenta que tienen culturas cinematográficas bastante diferentes a la americana?
Yes. Emiliano said that you, oh, I have, let me, sorry. I'm trying to, it's supposed to connect through my phone to avoid the freezing, but it's got echo. So let's see if we can go for over here.
Okay.
For the inconvenience. Emiliano said that, as you say, that you travel extensively to Europe, Romania, Serbia, Bulgaria, to shoot some of your films. What would you say are the pros and cons of filming in other countries with a film culture different from that you have at the US?
I've shot in the UK and Italy and Serbia, in Romania and Bulgaria. And for me, I love working in foreign countries because um, to have the opportunity for somebody else to pay for your apartment and your meals and to be able to live and immerse yourself in another world is like a life benefit for me. And I love working with crews from other countries because in the end, people who work in cinema, they all want to do beautiful work, and they all have sort of a common language of of camera direction and so for me it's really a matter of uh, getting to know the crew and then finding ways to inspire the best work out of them that also serves the needs of the film. So I've worked in the United States and it's great. Uh, and it's much easier to do that. But for me to walk the streets of a foreign capital uh, and be kind of a stranger observing the world around me and getting to know actors and the different styles in which they work and and just sharing like a creative experience with another new group of friends and creative collaborators for me, and it awakes my visual sense and my cultural sense and makes me a better person, I think, in the end. So I love working in other countries.
Bien,
Great. Fer?
No, seguimos con Emiliano.
Sigo.
El orden.
Eh, sí. Repasando su amplio, su extenso corpus fílmico, me surgía esta inquietud, dado que películas como Terror Vision o Terror Vision y Bad Channels, por ejemplo, presentan similitudes o inquietudes en común, me atrevería a decir, y que años después realizaría películas como The San Francisville Experiment, que es una suerte de found footage. Mi pregunta sería, ¿es el uso de las nuevas tecnologías un tema que considera importante o de interés para plantearlo desde su rol de creador, de realizador?
Let me ask that given that both television and bad channels shares, we can say, some common concerns, and years later you would make the St. Francisville experiment. The question is if the use of the new technologies is a topic that you consider important or interesting to address from your role as a filmmaker.
Hmm. Yeah, TerraVision was proposed to me by Charles Band by way of a poster, because that's the way he produced his films at the time, was create a poster and then see if he could sell it. And so the poster contained the image of a satellite dish and a stupid monster and a TV. So for me, it was the opportunity to kind of make a comment on television and the garbage of our culture, and it was interesting and kind of opened up the world of that movie TerraVision. And I wanted to make it a comedy because I sort of saw a monster that could be really kind of endearing and like a big stupid pet. So for me, and then Bad Channels, after TerraVision was I loved that movie, and I was really disappointed when it kind of received such a critical um, uh, backlash when it first came out. It was a little too broad and a little bit too kooky for audiences at the time, but over time it kind of, as friends turned their other friends onto it and kids kind of watched it and enjoyed it, it's grown into really quite a big audience around the world. So for me, that was like a real like it took a long time, and I was very sad and disappointed in the beginning, but I'm really happy with that film now. And when I finished TerraVision, Charlie Band had a poster of an alien abducting women through radio. And I declined that film, and I didn't really want to do it for years. I said, no, that's not for me, because I felt like I'd already done TerraVision, and I didn't see the what could be good about doing a radio movie. Then I guess I got hungry to direct again, and uh, when they proposed this movie would also have like little like music videos as part of the story, it got more interesting to me, and so I said, okay, I'll do it, and got my friend Jack Canson to do a rewrite on the script, and so I don't really see myself as like a director of ideas, and pick a theme like the effects of media on culture. I'm more of a just a director who kind of works from intuition and is sparked by ideas and by characters and by weird situations. So, and I guess in the end, it all comes down to whatever's kind of floating around in my mind at the time ends up on the film without necessarily, I'm not an intellectual. And so intellect doesn't drive the movies that I do. Um, St. Francisville Experiment, the found footage film, basically started out as a film that Charlie Band was going to direct. And he kind of tricked me into doing the film on the like a day before he was supposed to start shooting. He suddenly was unavailable to go to New Orleans, to Louisiana to shoot the film. And so he asked me if I would do it. And, I'm always up for travel and some kind of a challenge. So I said yes. And when I got there, it was supposed to be, these four college students and a haunted house. And the haunted house was supposed to have been outfitted with all kinds of weird gags that would terrorize them in the course of a night when they really were locked in the house. But when I got there, there were very few gags prepared. There was not very much pre-production or thought given to the film. Um, so we did what we could in the day that we had to kind of prep, and then we shot the film. And basically, the producers and I were kind of in a van outside the house, kind of communicating by radio, and but we couldn't at the time. There was no video village or anything like that, so we had no idea what they were shooting. So they shot the film, and then and basically my deal with Charlie was, I'll do this film, but I don't want my name on it, so there can be no director, because it's a found footage film anyway. But then I went into the editing process, and because I started out as an editor, I kind of have a good sense of how things should be cut. So we took a long time to edit the footage that they shot. Then when we showed it to the kind of executive producer, Peter Locke, he wanted more. And so then we went through a process of staking some situations and finding locations, interiors around Los Angeles that we could uh, like add more kind of scary moments to the film, because it was kind of lame in the beginning. Uh, and so the getting back to the technological part of it all, yeah, I think that like consumer video cameras, and now the growth of like shooting on digital, I embrace that a lot, because film was always it's a beautiful medium, but working in the low budget world, you're always kind of limited by the amount of film you can shoot in any given day. And I suffered that a lot, especially when we were in Romania, and they would have to ship film from out of the country for us to shoot. And some days we'd have like 1,000 feet of film to shoot, a full day's work. So yeah, I embraced the digital technology. And with St. Francisville experiment, it was in the very early phases of that, but it allowed for tremendous kind of flexibility and a sense of kind of immediacy that 16 millimeter and handheld cameras used to present.
Right.
A
Right.
question, Pablo, perdón. You
Yes.
abandoned the campy cookie style from Terror Vision because the backlash, or just because not interested
So,
anymore?
Uh, you know, I stand behind the style of TerrorVision. It was intended to be like a cartoon movie, and I love the actors and Garrett Graham and Mary Warrenoff and John Grise and Diane Franklin brought so much energy to the film, and I love that. And in comedy, I think that's it kind of goes a little bit too far, more in the direction of camp than most comedies want to be. Um, but when it was done, I felt the need to kind of do something where I took the subject seriously, where the subject was serious, where the acting would prove that I could do something other than just kooky comedy. Um, I started out thinking I was going to direct comedies in my life, and because I had studied, film at the University of Texas and was well versed in kind of classic cinema, I wanted to cover a lot of genres in my life. And TerraVision gave me the opportunity to do a comedy, but then I wanted to do something serious. And I was never really a big fan of vampire movies. For me, growing up, Frankenstein was the great monster, and Bela Lugosi was kind of boring. But in film school, I saw Nosferatu and was introduced to a whole other kind of vampire. And I wanted to, when I had the opportunity to do subspecies, and when I saw the locations and the kind of gothic atmosphere that could be brought to the film, I wanted to really celebrate that genre of filmmaking. And I saw kind of the immense possibilities of the psychology of a vampire, and which we didn't explore so much in subspecies number one, but later on in the series we got to know Radu a lot better. And I think I've kind of realized that in the movies that I've been able to make, I kind of empathize more with the monsters than I do with the humans, and I sort of I embrace that now, because what can you do? This is, the most interesting characters in most movies are the villains. So, it's allowed me to kind of create this world of the vampires and whatever is, in opposition to the normal world. And so, uh, I can't remember the question now, really. Oh, seriousness. Yeah. So I feel like every movie um, demands its own style, and every movie kind of inspires you to create something that honors the characters and the situations and what the audience needs to gain from the film. So I hope that's been my process always, is to not impose my style, although you can see kind of whatever style that I have is in the films, but for each film to kind of express the atmosphere of the story.
Oh, you say Nosferatu, and I would like to add, if I may, that you one of a kind vampire, my friend Radu, has kinda Nosferatu two fangs in the middle of almost, instead of the fangs in the side of both sides of the mouth, like Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee impersonations. So yes, Radu has this, you know, uh, print foot of Nosferatu with the fangs both in the middle of the teeth. So,
Let me talk about Radu for a moment, if you don't mind.
oh yes,
Yes, yes,
please,
for
I beg you.
the when we first started casting for Subspecies, we saw a lot of actors, and none were quite right. And there was one actor that we cast, and he was okay. And then I went to Romania and started doing pre-production. And Charlie Band continued casting for Stefan. And a guy named Michael Watson came into the casting session and suggested his friend Anas Hove, who was also on the soap opera General Hospital with Michael. And so they called Anas Hove to the casting session. And Charlie called me on the phone and said, "Oh my God, we found the perfect Radu." And so I didn't even meet Anas until he came to Romania. But the request I had for Greg Canham, who was creating the makeup for Radu, was to go in the direction of Nosferatu. And as part of that, the fangs were on the not the canines like most vampires, and it works. It works much better because on the canines, they're too far apart. It looks a little silly when they open their mouth. On the next teeth over, it's sharper and allows for a much more horrific look. Uh, so so that was the things, that was the makeup. When Honest came to Romania, we were already kind of up in the mountains, and so he did the makeup test and the wardrobe, and the wardrobe was phenomenal. Juana did an incredible job with his wardrobe, did the makeup. And then he and I just kind of went, okay, so now how does he sound? How does he walk? What is it with his character? And he and I went up to the fortress at Rizhnov and just kind of walked around for a while. He was in makeup, and I wanted the voice to be like there was uh, no wetness to his lungs, and he was just dried out inside. And so Honest kind of played with that voice that was kind of the whispery voice, played with kind of a crooked walk, and the fingers were kind of the spidery thing that he was able to really work with. Made it impossible for him to ever pick up anything, but somehow Honest, being the actor that he is, was able to hook things with his finger. And so in that day where we just spent walking around at the castle, we found kind of what Radu, how he would be. And even though it's evolved a little bit over the course of the movies, for me, Honest is like the first film, he was big trouble, very dedicated on the set, but very out of control at night, and a
Yeah.
temper that would just explode, and made me cry one time on the set. Just out, and it's not that he's mean, it's just that he is so there's something so explosive in him. And so after the first film, when Paramount and Charlie Band wanted Subspecies 2 and 3, um, I called Honest and said, "Okay, Honest, I loved working with you. You did a spectacular job, but let's make a deal. No drinking during the shooting day, no drunken craziness on set. And if you will agree to that, every night when they're taking off your makeup, and that was like an hour or so process, I'll come to your dressing room and sit with you and we'll drink wine together." And and he agreed to that. And from that was born this friendship that I cherish to this day, with an actor who is so capable of like madness on screen, and has such a big heart and is so generous with his fellow actors. Um, and eventually he kind of gave up drinking and is now, he's still crazy and still explosive and still will scream at you on the set. Um, but 20 years after the main subspecies, or 25 years, whatever it's been, when we went to Serbia to shoot Subspecies Blood Rise, the prequel to the series, um, he was so afraid of being able to kind of achieve that Radu quality again. Um, and so we spent a lot of time just kind of sitting at this bar and drinking coffee and going through the script and talking about it. And I was a little bit wondering if he was going to be able to kind of reach that peak of energy that Radu brings. But the first day on the set, is the scene. I don't know if you've seen the film, but where he brings a victim to his new fledglings, Ash and Ariel, for them to drink her blood. He just turned it on and became the most insane Radu that I've ever seen, without even any makeup. It was just his face. Um, So, he's just able to reach these peaks of madness that very few actors can.
Oh, great. If you don't mind, guys, I would like to drop a question as a writer, to considering that you also you are the director as well as the scriptwriter. So, in the world of subspecies, vampires are not merely creatures of the night. They are the who would say, the exploration of a personal and societal decay. How do you see the figure of the vampire evolving in modern horror? And do you find the creature still holds the same symbolic weight in contemporary storytelling?
I think the vampire is one of the most enduring monsters that cinema and literature have created. Um, there's something, and like I say, I was not a vampire fan in the beginning until I was forced to explore what it means to be a vampire. And uh, because there are so many human elements to a vampire, and the weight of the endless night, the loneliness of being a predator and apart from society, the the disability to even wander about freely because of the pallor and the way you look and probably smell, the the longing for some kind of family. And I think we put that into Radu's character. The subspecies blood rise was really about family and about the need for companionship through immortality. And so, in a way, I think the vampire speaks to a lot of our human needs and deficiencies. Uh, and then there's also the kind of erotic element of the vampire too, and the intimate kind of gross sensation of having someone snuggle you in bed and bite at your throat. And something that we tried to put into the subspecies and vampire journals worlds, the kind of erotic sensation of having your blood sucked out of you. Um, so so I think the vampire gives you endless possibilities for monstrosity, and for decay of the human body, uh, and so I think the vampire will always be with us because there are human vampires, in the government, in the world around us, and energy vampires who drain your vitality by being your friends. So I think it's one of the most enduring kind of horror symbols.
Yes, yes. Thank you. So, guys, who's next? Fernando?
Va
No.
Emiliano, pero
Yes.
quisiera hacer un comentario primero, ya que estaban hablando de Nosferatu, me hicieron acordar. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu makes a lot of things with shadows over buildings, over cities, but Ted Nicolaou did it first in Blue Species 2 and better. Just that commentary, nothing more than that.
Yeah, you
Yes.
know what? I think probably Theodore Dreiser maybe did it even before I did, you know.
Yes.
But for me, vampire turning into a bat just seemed ridiculous. Um, uh, and and the idea of a vampire becoming a shadow offered endless possibilities. And somehow we managed to do it on subspecies. Uh, uh, and we really kind of perfected it on subspecies too. And it took a lot of time because it takes a long time to set up a big light on a piece of architecture, to set up the dolly track so that it gives the correct perspective effect as a vampire flies away. And it's a luxury you can take when you're shooting in Romania and days are not so expensive and it's going to be a 35-day schedule no matter what. So it gave us the opportunity to really play with that. And I give Vlad Paunescu, the cinematographer, a lot of credit for that. Then when we came to Subspecies 5, Blood Rise, we had a 17-day schedule. I wanted to do shadow effects, but there was no way in a 17-day schedule to take a set, shoot a scene, and then revise the set to do a shadow. And in some ways, to do a shadow effect, a live shadow effect on a set that you've already lit for moodiness and atmosphere, when you put a big light on the set to create a shadow, it just obliterates anything artistic that you've done with the set. So it works on big architecture far away and works less in a set. Um, so so I made the decision that basically we couldn't, there was no time to do it, so let's don't even try and let's just shoot plates and try to do shadow effects, in computer. And some of them work and some of them didn't quite work in Subspecies 5, but I know a lot of fans were kind of disappointed that we didn't do it the same way we did it in the previous films, but that was basically the reason. It was impossible to even achieve it.
Yes, yes, quite a predicament indeed. So,
Emiliano.
who's next, guys? I mean, Emmy.
Sí, habiendo editado y dirigido películas pertenecientes al género fantástico en sus primeros, en el inicio de su recorrido como director, mi pregunta es, ¿cómo fue el cambio de saltar de hacer este tipo de películas a películas para niños, películas infantiles o juveniles?
Yes, it's a very good question. Emmy said that having edited and directed films belonging to the horror and fantasy genre in your early days, how was the transition from those genres to making films for children or young adults or whatever?
Uh, like I said earlier, my desire was always to make movies of many genres. And there's a great pleasure in making horror movies because atmosphere is the king and the characters and the interactions and the villain are really important. But when the opportunity came to direct, I guess the first of the kids' movies that I did was Dragon World. Um, I jumped at it because, uh, in a way, yes, all the pleasures of making horror films is one thing, but the kind of pleasures, the purity of making a movie for children and for families. And the I've always considered myself, maybe not all completely a horror film director, but more of a fantasist, a fantasy film director. And so shifting into fantasy films for families seems like a pretty easy shift. And the opportunity to shoot Dragon World with a bigger budget in the UK, scouting locations there again, my favorite part of the whole process, seeing the country and the castles and the manor houses and the moors and all the places we were going to be able to shoot, and working with some spectacular English actors. Was for me kind of the most heartwarming and beautiful production experience. I love horror films and I would jump at the chance to make another subspecies, but Dragon World was kind of unique in my experience. You feel every day is sort of like this beautiful experience. Working with children is hard and fills you with dread every day because you hope you can get a good performance from them. But with the support of the English cast and the UK crew, that movie was wonderful. And then speaking of fantasy films, then the later films, the Leap and Leprechauns film and the Magic in the Mirror films, went a little bit darker, and I consider them more like dark fantasy films. And I don't know what we were thinking of in the Magic in the Mirror movies with ducks in the duck world making tea out of people. How I imagined that would work for children, uh, but again, it's like even Walt Disney in his family fantasy films and the fairy tale films, the evil was really evil, and so I kind of took that as a permission to create these dark fables for kids. So, and again, it was always a pleasure, always a terror working with children, but a pleasure to be creating something that, I have kids and the thought that they could be entertained by these movies too. So I don't really distinguish so much the difference between the horror films and the children's films because they are all fables and they're all fantasies.
Yeah.
Great, 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 great. Um, who's next?
Emiliano.
Voy yo.
Emiliano, sí.
Mencionaba justamente a Disney, a las películas de Disney. Dirigió en 2010 un hermoso documental llamado Dalí y Disney, A Date with Destino, que ilustra el proceso creativo de dos grandes de la imagen e íconos culturales del siglo XX. Mi pregunta es, ¿cómo fue trabajar para Disney? Si siente algún tipo de empatía o si ha sido influenciado por la obra de algunos de estos artistas.
Yes, Amy said that in 2010, you directed Dalí and Disney, A Date with Destino, a beautiful documentary that illustrates the creative process of two greats of the 20th century, both cultural icons and masters of the image. What was it like working with Disney? And do you feel any empathy or have you been influenced by the work of these figures, these big shots of the history of the culture and the art?
So, Destino came about basically when Charles Band's company kind of fell apart around 2000. I had to find some way to continue working and to continue creating movies. And I had a friend who owned a company who basically did a lot of work for like the behind the scenes documentaries for DVD bonus features. And so I kind of went through the process of teaching myself how to edit digitally because I'd sort of last I edited was 35 millimeter, and went to work with her uh, producing and editing little bonus feature documentaries. And I got very good at it, and the Disney people liked me, and so I kept getting jobs kind of exploring the creative work of Disney and his artists. And um, and in the process of that, I got to kind of spend a lot of time at the Animation Research Library looking through old story sketches and artwork and concept art, and also in the Disney archives, like reading notes from the story meetings and understanding how Walt Disney kind of shaped the stories and inspired his artists. And one day, the Disney executive who was kind of in charge of giving us work came in and said, would you like to do this documentary? We have this documentary. Some people have shot some of the interviews, and but they can't find a way to make the story gel and be coherent. And for me, I in college I was introduced to Salvador Dali, and being kind of like a hippie back in those days, and LSD and marijuana were very prevalent in the at the University of Texas. Dali was for me like your imagination exploding onto a canvas, and I loved his work, and so uh, basically I said yes, I would love to do that film. So then began a process, 6 months or so, of like researching, taking what they had shot, reading all the transcripts, and finding a way to tell the story, which basically was a parallel evolution of two men that were kind of singular artists of the 20th century, and both of them relied on technology, and both of them relied on fantasy, and both of them brought dreams to life. And so the story became like this parallel telling of their evolution and their eventual friendship. And so yeah, Disney for me was like a necessary part of my childhood. Every Sunday night, we would watch Wonderful World of Color, and Walt Disney would explain how things were done, and you'd see cartoons, you'd see like the movies that he was making at the time, and movies like Snow White and Pinocchio and just all of those films kind of formed my imagination in a way. What's it like to fly? Well, just look at Peter Pan. What is a like a bum's uh, cabin look like on the beach? And just look at Disney films, and you will see. And Disney, bought art books from Europe and brought them back to the library at the studio, and made his artists look at them and study and try to like emulate the storybook style of illustrations for some of the movies. But he was always looking for new artists and new styles to explore, and that's what brought him to Salvador Dali. Basically, one of his artists said, "Hey, have you seen this artist?" And showed Walt some some of Dali's work, and Walt had met Salvador Dali at a party at Jack Warner's house and said, "Hey, you should come work at the studio sometime." And from that was born this. I don't know if you could call it a friendship, although Walt thought it was a friendship, and I think Salvador Dali thought of it as a paycheck and the opportunity to uh, to reach a bigger audience and become a filmmaker, because that was kind of his great desire, was to make movies, and Walt's great desire was to be recognized as a serious artist. So it was a perfect kind of blend of two men who kind of wanted what each other had. And I think Dali worked at the studio for 6 months or so, and eventually the art that he was producing were some amazing story sketches, beautiful little story sketches that if you look at them closely contain amazing amount of detail and was Salvador Dali at his peak. But Walt, but then Salvador Dali kind of started getting involved with baseball and started drawing pictures of baseball players catching balls and imagining catching balls from God. And Disney walked in one day and just went, "What the hell is this?" And pulled the plug on the whole project. So Destino sat for years and years before it was eventually made, and it wasn't made in the way that Dali would have had it made. So, so for me, yes, Dali, Disney, two icons of the 20th century, two men who really helped to form my imagination.
Right. Marvelous. Per?
Your horror films, Ragdoll and Horrible Dr. Bones, were made to promote hip hop singers?
Uh, there came a point at Charlie Band's Full Moon where he was trying everything, and an actor kind of came into his orbit, Mel Johnson Jr., who had been in the Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Oh my God, what was that film set on Mars?
Total Recall?
Yes. An actor came into Charlie Band's universe named Mel Johnson Jr., who had been in the Schwarzenegger film Total Recall. And Mel was like this, Broadway actor uh, and wanted to produce films. And Charlie got it in his mind that he also could expand his brand and attract bigger audience in the kind of African American community. And so uh, he decided to make these movies under an urban brand. And I don't know why he chose me. I'm not the blackest person in the world. And I think he chose me because I can kind of chameleon, kind of fit into, foreign countries to whatever. And he could rely on me to kind of make something that would at least be presentable. So Mel and I got together, and we liked each other a lot, and we started casting the film, and so that led to a really decent friendship between me and Mel, and we made the first one. And yes, there was, as part of the overall kind of strategy of Charlie's, was to promote albums or to promote music artists and and hopefully incorporate that into the movies and have a horror audience too. So the very first one we did uh, was like it turned out pretty well. I mean, they were shot on a very low budget and a very tight number of shooting days. And um, Ragdoll was like, we did the best we could with the number of days that we had. I had Mac Allberg, who was a great cinematographer, working with me, and there was something about the way he could light that everything kind of had this creamy color to it, and I found the actors, the young black actors, were like amazing and really fun to work with, and also their emotions were so close to the surface, and so working with them was like a real pleasure. James Black, the guy who plays kind of the little Richard evil villain, was there was something in the script that it wasn't written as a gay character, but there was one line in the script that just sounded kind of like something a gay character would say. So I said to Mel, let's play him as like a little Richard crimp thug. And when we found James Black, and I suggested that to him, he took that suggestion and just created this wonderful character. And because of the budget, we kind of did away with dolly shots and had a really talented Steadicam operator kind of with us all the time. So in a way, it was a way for me to kind of play with a kind of filming style and keep the camera moving as much as possible, and to work with these young actors and also to create these musical sequences. So I did that film, and I guess it did well enough for him to want to do the next film, which was The Horrible Dr. Bones. But by that time, the budget was cut in half. It was 9 shooting days. The locations were like in this subterranean like basement of some disgusting building in downtown Los Angeles with rat feces, and like everybody got like a terrible lung infection from working in there. The actors were less good. The shooting for me 9 days for me, like I can do pretty much anything, but I hate the pressure of shooting too much material in one day. And I can find ways to simplify and all that, but I'm a 3 to 5 pages a day, not a 10 or 12 pages a day kind of director. So for me, it was miserable, that kind of shooting situation. And so, but we did it, and I try to look at the film, but I kind of don't really approve of it that much, and that pretty much I think was maybe the end of the urban films experiment for Charlie. But again, the opportunity to work with actors and especially a cast of young actors who are like so in need of more opportunities. Now I think there's a lot more opportunities for a more diverse uh, selection of actors. But back then there really wasn't, and Charlie was not a guy who would cast anybody other than white people in his movies. So it's kind of a breakthrough for him too.
Great. Amazing.
My
So,
my
Fernando,
my last question. Um, how was your overall experience working with Charles Band and Full Moon?
Uh, I started out with Charlie Band as an editor. I edited the film Tourist Trap for him, and he liked the work that I
Excellent
did
film.
and continued. Yeah, yeah, it's a really scary, weird, very weird movie. And David Schmoller was a contemporary of mine at the University of Texas in the film school, and so we were friendly there. And I had been cinematographer on one of his shorts. So when I came to LA and I was working on a movie called Roar editing, then they hired me on to edit this movie, Tourist Trap. So I got to know Charlie not very well at the time because in those days he was kind of locked in his office because people were always after him to be paid, and he was always behind on the paychecks because he was always scrambling to find money to keep making the movies. So he edited Tourist Trap. Then he asked me to kind of fix a movie that the director and editor had quit on, called The Daytime Ended, which was kind of a crazy science fiction time travel time warp movie. So I did that. And then I went off and edited some other people's films for a while. And he called me back, and I edited the movies he directed for a long time. Trancers 2, um, uh, a lot of his movies, and we really got along very well. And the thing about Charlie, I let him know early on that my great desire was to direct, and I continued to edit just to keep my hand in the company there, and eventually he gave me the opportunity to direct in a little sequence on Dungeon Master, and then TerraVision. And the great thing about Charlie Band is he loves movies and he loves looking at dailies, and he loves the post-production process. And his father at the time was very involved in the editorial process of the movies. And so you had to kind of work with Albert, his father, in the kind of trimming down of your first director's cut. And Charlie he loved the moving image and he loved making movies and the whole process. And he loved kind of giving out jobs to people. And he was not a real control freak when it came to, once he trusted you and believed that you were going to be able to, you know, deliver what it was that he was looking for, which was horror without it being too gross horror, which was a few bare breasts, which was the things of exploitation films. He pretty much left you alone and was pleased with the result. So in a way, what you gave up in budget and in schedule and in like Hollywood respectability, you gained in kind of freedom and the ability to make movies that were a little bit renegade and not quite part of the industry of Hollywood. So, I love Charlie Band. I mean, basically, I know I've been exploited through a lot of my life and haven't gotten paid like I should have, but I've had like the most amazing opportunities and the most wonderful experiences making movies around the world. And he trusted me enough that I was the one he would send to Europe to explore the possibilities of shooting there. So he's my friend to this day. And I just wish he could make movies with the budget that he should be making them at. And there were several opportunities along the way where Paramount was funding the films, and we all felt like we were kind of rising in the world of movie making, but he always has a tendency to take whatever money he gets and gamble it on real estate or on more movies and always kind of gets himself in trouble and everything falls down. And then, like the phoenix, he rises up and continues making movies. And so he's a character that is. I think his output isn't quite as great as Roger Corman, but I think his influence on the world of genre movies and B movies is probably greater.
Great. Emmy, your last shot.
Ok. Yes. Esta pregunta es tal vez un poquito trivial, pero bueno, mi última pregunta sería, teniendo en cuenta algunas de las dificultades que ya comentó, con las que tuvo que lidiar en algunas de las películas de las que habló, ¿cuál diría que es la película más difícil o en la cual tuvo que enfrentar mayor cantidad de dificultades, de las cuales le tocó realizar, ¿no?
Considering your huge career as a scriptwriter, filmmaker, producer, and so on, what would you say that is the most challenging film you had to make?
The most challenging film?
Yeah,
I think the most challenging film that I had to do was basically the first subspecies film because I went to a country that was kind of desperately in disrepair, a place where you couldn't find the food that you needed. If you went to a restaurant, you were lucky if the chicken wasn't just raw and bloody. The waiters could give a shit about serving you. The, everything about it. Every hotel you stayed in felt sinister and darkness because there weren't enough light bulbs. The people were watching you everywhere. The former Securitate agents sitting in the hotel bars with their prostitutes. Everything about it seemed evil. And within that kind of dark atmosphere, there was the joyousness of the theater actors and the bars that they would go to at night after the end of their performances. And in that, I discovered like, oh my God, in the middle of like a dictatorship of horrific proportions, there is still this like spark of humanity and humor and drunken celebration that goes on in the arts. And same thing with the film workers and the craftsmen and artists that I was able to work with. They worked with no money, but the costume warehouse at Bufta was filled with the most amazing fabrics and historic pieces. So in the midst of poverty, personal poverty, uh, there was all this richness of culture that underlay the Romanian kind of, Paris of the East, which was still there. The architecture, even though was kind of in shambles, was amazing, and I grew up Greek Orthodox, and so the Orthodox churches there were very similar to the churches of my childhood, and full of like icons and incense and incredible uh, architectural details. And so uh, the difficulties of the shooting, the inability to find food, the inability to get heaters on the set, the actors crying from being too cold in the forest, the drunken nights in the hotel where they would just sweep all the glasses off the table and yell, "Fuck you, Ted," uh, for blaming me for getting them into this in the first place. And dealing with drunken actors, dealing our production meetings with the crew would start out with glasses like this of vodka.
Oh dear, Lord.
Until by the end, halfway through the production meeting, everybody is drunk and yelling, uh, and the crew going on strike constantly because they weren't paid on time. The film not arriving on time, so I'd have to shoot with less film than necessary. The thing in Romania at the time was there was the man with the key. And basically, that's any location you wanted to go to, a church or a cemetery, you had to find the man with the key who could open the door to let you in. And there was always the problem of the man with the key was not available or was drunk and you couldn't find him. And the sword fights at Bufta Studios for the film, basically the swords were like like chainsaws almost from having been clashed so many times. They were just sharp and riddled with things that could cut your head off. And and the and we were doing these sword fights with these real broadswords, and the actors were getting drunk before the shooting day. And so the production assistant would say, "Mr. Ted, please come to the dressing room. The actors are destroying everything." And I'd go up to the dressing room, and Anna Sove and Michael Watson would be drunk right before we're supposed to shoot this incredibly dangerous sword fight and threatening me because they blamed me for exploiting the Romanian economy by making this movie there. And so I had to pull the plug on the shoot 3 days, I think, in a row because they were too drunk. And having the Romanian stunt coordinator coming up to me going, "No, no, no, Ted, don't worry. It's good to be a little drunk when you do a sword fight." And so it was like madness. It was like working in a place where none of the rules applied. So for me, that was the most difficult, and I couldn't wait to get out of that country when it was over because it stretched from supposed to be 4 weeks or so to like 3 months. And by the time it was over, I was so exhausted and so traumatized by the whole experience. I got home, and 3 weeks later, kind of all those memories went away, and it was just, wow, that was the most amazing experience of my life. So it was the most difficult and the most amazing all at
Oh,
once.
yeah. You were bouncing of the race of age all the time. Yes.
Exactly.
That,
I kept a journal on the first subspecies, every night I realize if I don't write this down and make it funny for myself, I'm going to go completely insane. I will send it to you, Fernando, if you want to pass it along.
Yes,
It's a very funny read. If you're interested in subspecies, I'll send it to you.
I want that.
Great,
It's
great.
the true story day by day through the shoot. Yeah.
We love to. So we are finishing our beautiful, amazing, so generous interview. So we used to end with two questions. One is all the same for everybody, and if you can tell us, if you can, what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah. Um, So the last time I worked was subspecies Blood Rise, and it was probably 2.5 years ago now, or maybe three. Oh my God! Uh, and at the time, we were just coming out of COVID, and I was so happy to be back on the set, so pleased to be scouting locations, working with film artists again. And so I kind of decided that, oh my God, this is what I want to do again, because I had been working for Disney for quite some time and was a little bit tired of celebrating the artistry of other filmmakers. And so I said, no more Disney. I'm now going to start making movies again. And then 3 years later, I've got three screenplays that I've written. I'm just finishing another one, two horror films, one comedy, uh, and and I I have hopes of finding the money, finding producers who could make the films. Charlie is now making movies at a budget that I can't really justify working. Um, so, so that's what I'm doing. My wife says I'm working on my pretend movies
Mm.
because every movie is pretend until it becomes real. So I keep myself occupied by writing and because I believe, until I die, I want to keep doing something, and so it gives me the opportunity to practice my creativity and keep some hope alive of making a film.
Yes, great. And the last question, being me myself a writer, horror writer, I like to make a question um, out of the box in order to understand the creative process in the mind of the big creators like you. And we all the time play with the what happened if, no? So uh, you say that you speak about the elegance of decay. So if you were to curate a dinner party in one of your cinematic wars, what would be seated fictional or real historical figure at your right side? What would be your companion for this uh, joy evening of drunk vodka and so on?
Well, wow, what a question. I suppose it might be Salvador Dali because of his experiences. I have a feeling he would just bullshit me all night long, but it would be very entertaining, I'm sure. I would also, I would love to have Martin Scorsese sitting beside me
Oh,
to hear him talk about things because for me, he is probably the greatest American director of
Genius.
this of these years. Um, and Bernardo Bertolucci would be
Oh,
another
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So he would sit across from me, because 1900 for me and The Conformist for me are two of the great movies that I've ever seen. So, and Federico Fellini would be over here. Um, and Bob Dylan would be a part of this dinner party too.
Right. And
Y no,
Roger
yo,
Corman?
Roger Corman, when I first came to Los Angeles, some of my friends were working for Corman and they suggested I should go over there and see if I could get a job. I never got a job at Corman's. And so no, I'm not Roger Corman. I don't think so. I mean, he made some movies that I appreciate, but no, no.
No thanks.
All right. Put away Roger Corman. My mistake.
He could be at your dinner party, perhaps. And maybe you'd
Oh,
invite me so I get to enjoy him too.
I will very, very, very glad, very honored, of course, certainly. And I promise next time I was in LA, I will be in LA. I give you a call to 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 buy a drink and let me.
Please do. Yeah, I would
Yes,
love
of
that.
course. I will be delighted, of course,
Okay.
certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for us. We have no more words of thanks for you, your time, your generosity, your open. You speak to us with your open heart, sharing your experience, your knowledge, your anecdotes about these kind of movies that for all of us over here are in the inner part of our growing life as a child or youngsters. And it was really, really a pleasure. Remember my good friend Radu, and we used to play with my brothers and my dad doing this stuff of kind. My mom have a big ring with a red stone, so we play that is the blood stone.
Oh man,
Yes.
how
I
cool.
mean it. It's not just a complimentary uh, word. It's part of my history, my own history. So I really appreciate got the opportunity to let you meet you and interview you with my colleagues over here. That I'm quite sure that I really thankful as me.
It was a real pleasure talking to you guys, and your questions were very interesting and kind of complicated to answer, but really, really good. And so I appreciate that. And I also it's also wonderful for me to see how the films have kind of spread around the world, and have people who appreciate them everywhere. So thank you for that.
No, thank
Oh
I'll
you.
yes,
send you the subspecies journal. Yeah.
Yes.
Sam, yes, we really appreciate.
Okay. Pablo, Emiliano, Fernando, thank you so much.
It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Hey, for me
thank you,
too.
Ted.
Okay.
Keep
Bye.
doing.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye-bye.